Amanda and Matthew's wedding was a fairy tale come to life. Every detail was perfect, from the lavish floral arrangements to the glittering chandeliers that filled the grand ballroom. The evening felt like something out of a movie, a night no one in our family would ever forget. As Matthew swept Amanda across the dance floor, I couldn't help but feel happy for her. We hadn't always been close, but seeing her radiant smile made it hard to hold on to old grudges. It was a picture-perfect moment, but as I would learn the very next day, perfection is often an illusion. The trouble began during the post-wedding family brunch. We were gathered in the sprawling garden of Amanda's in-laws' estate, the air filled with the scent of freshly brewed coffee and blooming roses. Amanda stood abruptly, clinking her glass to get everyone's attention. Her face was solemn, a stark contrast to her bridal glow from the night before. Without any preamble, she announced that a large portion of the wedding money, $125,000 to be exact, was missing. Her gaze landed squarely on me. Accusations followed like a hailstorm. Amanda claimed she had proof that I had taken the money, though she refused to elaborate. The room's energy shifted instantly. Whispers turned to sharp glares aimed in my direction. Matthew, ever the dutiful husband, placed an arm around her and nodded as if to confirm her every word. My protests, my shock, meant nothing. My voice was drowned out by the collective judgment of the family. They didn't even give me a chance to explain. One by one, relatives voiced their disappointment. How could you betray Amanda like this? We trusted you. It was as if a verdict had already been reached before the trial began. My own parents stood silently, their discomfort obvious but their loyalty to Amanda unshakable. In that moment, it was clear where I stood. I was the outsider, the scapegoat. Within hours, I was effectively exiled. They demanded I leave the brunch, and by the end of the day, I was told not to contact anyone in the family until I admitted what I had done. I was stunned. How could they believe I was capable of such a thing? The betrayal cut deeper than the accusation itself. Amanda had always been dramatic, but this was a new low. As I left the estate, the humiliation burned like acid in my chest. But the sting of betrayal gave way to something else, clarity. This wasn't just about the wedding money. Amanda's words and actions began to unravel in my mind, the pieces of a much bigger puzzle falling into place. I thought back to our grandmother's passing a year earlier. She had left the bulk of her inheritance to me, a decision that had caused more than a few whispered arguments at family gatherings. Amanda had been furious, though she'd hidden it behind a veneer of civility. Could this be her revenge? The timing of her accusation was too convenient, the evidence too vague. And why $125,000? It was an oddly specific number, one that seemed calculated rather than incidental. Amanda had always been manipulative, but I had underestimated just how far she was willing to go. This wasn't a coincidence, it was a setup. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Amanda had orchestrated this, turning the entire family against me to serve her agenda. The money, the accusations, the public humiliation, all of it was designed to isolate me, to paint me as the villain and her as the victim. It was genius in its cruelty. But if Amanda thought I would roll over and accept my role as the family pariah, she was mistaken. For too long, I'd let her manipulation slide, convinced it was easier to keep the peace. That time was over. As I walked away from the estate, my mind was already racing with plans. If Amanda wanted a fight, I would give her one. No more playing nice. This wasn't just about clearing my name, it was about reclaiming my place in the family and exposing Amanda for who she truly was. The seeds of retaliation had been planted, and for the first time in years, I felt a sense of purpose. Amanda might have started this war, but I was determined to finish it. The memory came back to me with startling clarity as I sat in my apartment, piecing together Amanda's web of deceit. A few months ago, during an uneventful Tuesday afternoon, I had spotted her at a small, out-of-the-way cafe. It wasn't the kind of place Amanda typically frequented, and what caught my attention wasn't just her presence but the man sitting across from her. Their body language spoke volumes, the fleeting touches, the shared laughter, the way they leaned into each other as if the world around them didn't exist. I had brushed it off at the time, convincing myself it was probably harmless. But now, in light of everything, the incident took on a much darker significance. Fueled by anger and a newfound determination, I decided to dig deeper. If Amanda wanted to paint me as a thief, I would show the family who the real villain was. My plan was simple: gather irrefutable evidence of her lies and expose her for what she truly was. No more assumptions, no more letting things slide. This time, I needed proof. Over the next week, I started following Amanda discreetly. It wasn't hard. She had a routine that was as predictable as it was elaborate. Morning yoga sessions, errands, lunch with friends, and then, every Thursday afternoon, she would run some personal errands. This was the time that piqued my curiosity. My hunch paid off when, on one of those Thursdays, she didn't head to the usual spots. Instead, she drove across town to a high-end hotel. I parked a safe distance away and watched as she met the same man from the cafe. They greeted each other warmly, far too warmly for two people who were just friends. I needed hard evidence. Using a recording app on my phone, I managed to capture video footage of their meeting. They didn't just linger in the lobby, they headed straight to the elevators. The implications were clear. Over the next few weeks, I documented several similar encounters. Different locations, same man, same undeniable chemistry. Each recording solidified the picture of Amanda's double life. Every time I hit the record button, I felt a mix of vindication and heartbreak. This wasn't just about clearing my name anymore, it was about showing everyone the truth. Meanwhile, the family's hostility showed no signs of letting up. My phone was flooded with messages, sharp accusations and passive-aggressive comments from relatives who had firmly taken Amanda's side. Each text was a fresh wound, but instead of breaking me, it fueled my resolve. They had turned their backs on me without hesitation, and now, I was going to make them see how wrong they had been. As the evidence piled up, so did my determination to execute the perfect plan. I needed a stage, a moment where everyone would be forced to confront the truth without Amanda having a chance to twist the narrative. The opportunity came in the form of an upcoming family dinner, one of those obligatory gatherings that everyone attended out of tradition. It was the perfect setting, a room full of people who had judged and condemned me without a second thought. I spent the days leading up to the dinner meticulously preparing. The videos, the photos, the timestamps, everything was organized and ready to present. This wasn't just about exposing Amanda, it was about reclaiming my dignity and forcing the family to see the damage their blind loyalty had caused. Amanda had underestimated me, but she was about to learn that I wasn't as easy to manipulate as she'd thought. As I finalized my plans, a strange sense of calm washed over me. For the first time in weeks, I felt in control. Amanda might have set the trap, but I was about to turn it against her in a way she'd never see coming. The family dinner was only days away, and with every passing hour, my resolve hardened. The truth was a powerful weapon, and I intended to wield it with precision. When I called my parents to tell them I wanted to attend the family dinner, they seemed hesitant but eventually agreed, their voices laced with caution. I promised them that I would offer an apology for the sake of peace, though in reality, I had no intention of bowing to Amanda's lies. It wasn't just a dinner to me, it was the battleground where I would reclaim my name and dignity. Every step of my plan had been carefully crafted for maximum impact, and I was ready to see it through. The evening arrived, and the tension in the room was palpable. Amanda walked in, radiating confidence as if she had already won. Her every gesture screamed triumph, from the smug tilt of her chin to the condescending glances she threw my way. The rest of the family was subdued but clearly on her side, their hushed whispers and pointed looks making it obvious they expected me to grovel. I sat quietly, letting the atmosphere thicken, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Dinner began with the usual polite chatter, but it wasn't long before Amanda steered the conversation toward the missing money. She spoke with feigned sadness, lamenting the betrayal she claimed to feel. Each word was a dagger, designed to paint me as the villain. My parents exchanged uncomfortable glances but said nothing. It was clear they wanted resolution, even if it came at my expense. When Amanda finally paused, clearly expecting me to grovel, I took a deep breath and stood. The room fell silent, every eye fixed on me. With steady hands, I pulled out my phone and connected it to the television in the room. As the first video began to play, Amanda's expression shifted from smug to panicked. On the screen, she was unmistakably visible, laughing and touching the arm of the man she'd been meeting in secret. The room erupted in gasps and murmurs as the footage continued, each frame more damning than the last. Matthew's face was a mask of shock. He turned to Amanda, his voice low and demanding as he asked her to explain. For the first time, her confidence wavered. She stammered, trying to weave a story about misunderstandings and coincidences, but her words lacked conviction. The evidence was too clear, her lies too transparent. The family, who had been so quick to believe her accusations against me, now looked unsure. Whispers turned to pointed questions, and Amanda's facade began to crumble under the weight of their scrutiny. She tried to regain control, accusing me of invading her privacy, but the room wasn't buying it. Her attempts to shift the blame only made her look guiltier. Matthew's questions grew sharper, his disbelief turning to anger. He demanded the truth, his tone leaving no room for evasion. Amanda's excuses grew weaker, her voice trembling as she realized she was losing control of the narrative. The confident woman who had walked into the room was now a shadow of herself, cornered and exposed. By the end of the evening, the tide had turned completely. Matthew announced he needed time to think and left the room without so much as a glance at Amanda. The family's whispers grew louder, their earlier support for her replaced with doubt and suspicion. For the first time, they looked at me with something other than judgment. It wasn't quite an apology, but it was a start. As I left the dinner, I felt a sense of relief I hadn't experienced in weeks. Amanda's lies had finally begun to unravel, and the family was starting to see her for who she truly was. The battle wasn't over, but the first victory was mine. I walked away knowing that I had taken the first step in reclaiming not just my reputation, but my place in the family. The fallout from the family dinner was immediate and chaotic. Amanda, who had been exposed in front of everyone, wasted no time trying to salvage her position. By the next morning, whispers began circulating that the videos I had shown were fake, carefully edited to frame her as part of a vindictive plot. Amanda claimed that I had always resented her and that this was my way of lashing out. Her narrative painted her as the victim of a calculated attack, and, predictably, some family members latched onto her story without hesitation. The doubt spread quickly. Aunts and uncles who had initially seemed shocked by the evidence now called to question its validity. They'd heard Amanda's version and started to wonder if I really had gone to such lengths to destroy her reputation. It was maddening. No matter how irrefutable the evidence seemed, Amanda's ability to manipulate the narrative was like quicksand, dragging people back into her corner. But there was one unexpected source of support, Matthew. The man who had stood stunned at the dinner now seemed to have reached his breaking point with Amanda's lies. A few days after the dinner, he made a public post on social media, recounting his side of the events. He acknowledged the videos and confirmed their authenticity, stating that he had confronted Amanda and received no satisfactory explanation. His words were clear and direct, he believed me. The post caused a rift within the family. Some relatives praised Matthew for his honesty, while others accused him of betraying his wife. Group chats turned into battlegrounds, and family gatherings were tentatively cancelled to avoid further drama. On one hand, having Matthew's support felt like validation, on the other, the relentless back and forth was exhausting. My name became the subject of every conversation, but not always in a way that restored my reputation. I started to feel the weight of it all pressing down on me. No matter how many people believed the truth, there were still whispers, still those who clung to Amanda's version of events. It was as if the harder I fought to clear my name, the deeper the pit Amanda dug to bury me. Doubts began creeping in. Could I ever fully recover from this? Would the family ever see me as anything other than the scapegoat Amanda had crafted? Matthew, however, refused to let me spiral. His messages and calls became a lifeline, a constant reminder that I wasn't alone in this fight. He shared updates on the reactions to his post and encouraged me to stay strong. His support was bolstered by a few close friends who had seen Amanda's manipulative streak for years and now felt vindicated by the proof. They rallied around me, reminding me that the truth, no matter how obscured, always had a way of coming to light. Despite the support, Amanda's persistence was unnerving. She began spreading rumors even further, reaching out to extended family and mutual acquaintances. Her claims became more elaborate, painting me as not just a liar but someone who had a vendetta against her for years. The absurdity of her stories might have been laughable if they weren't so effective. She was relentless, a master at playing the victim. The tipping point came when Amanda announced her intention to sue me for defamation. It was a calculated move, one designed to intimidate me and further tarnish my credibility. The family's reactions were mixed. Some saw it as a desperate ploy, while others viewed it as proof that Amanda must be telling the truth. After all, why would she go to such lengths if she had nothing to defend? The news of the lawsuit hit me like a punch to the gut. I had anticipated resistance, even backlash, but this felt like an escalation I wasn't prepared for. The idea of facing Amanda in court, of dragging this ordeal into an even more public arena, was daunting. But as Matthew reminded me, it was also an opportunity. Amanda's lies had thrived in the shadows of whispers and rumors. In the courtroom, they would be laid bare for what they were. I spent the next few days steeling myself for what was to come. Amanda might have thought she could break me with this latest move, but she had underestimated my resolve. The truth was still my greatest weapon, and I intended to wield it, no matter how many battles it took. The courtroom buzzed with a tense energy as the trial began. Amanda arrived dressed to impress, her confidence seemingly unshaken despite the mounting evidence against her. She played the role of the wronged party masterfully, her demeanor polished and poised. But beneath her composed exterior, there was a flicker of unease, a subtle tell that she knew the foundation of her case was about to crumble. My lawyer, a sharp and methodical advocate, wasted no time dismantling Amanda's arguments. The first blow came when he presented the unaltered video files, complete with metadata proving their authenticity. Each timestamp matched the dates and times Amanda had claimed she was elsewhere. The footage showed her meeting with the same man repeatedly, their interactions far too intimate to be misconstrued. Amanda's lawyer attempted to dismiss the evidence as circumstantial, but the clarity of the recordings left little room for doubt. Next, my lawyer introduced a string of text messages between Amanda and her lover, obtained through subpoena. The messages painted a damning picture of their relationship, revealing not only the affair but also discussions about how to discredit me. One particular exchange even referenced her plan to accuse me of theft, confirming my suspicions that this had been a calculated attack from the start. The turning point came when Matthew took the stand. His testimony was calm and measured, but every word cut through Amanda's narrative like a scalpel. He recounted the events following the family dinner, including Amanda's erratic behavior and her inability to provide any plausible explanations for the evidence. He admitted to feeling betrayed by her actions, stating unequivocally that he believed the videos and messages to be genuine. His support was a blow Amanda hadn't anticipated, and her composure began to crack under the weight of his words. Throughout the proceedings, Amanda's lawyer made increasingly desperate attempts to salvage her case. They tried to shift focus to my supposed obsession with Amanda, portraying me as someone intent on ruining her life. But the argument fell flat in the face of the overwhelming evidence. The courtroom's mood shifted palpably as Amanda's manipulations were laid bare for all to see. When it was Amanda's turn to testify, her once confident demeanor was gone. She stumbled through her statements, her attempts to justify her actions sounding hollow and rehearsed. The judge's expression remained impassive, but there was an unmistakable edge to their questions, a clear indication that Amanda's credibility was unraveling. Her accusations against me no longer seemed like the cries of a victim but rather the desperate ploys of someone backed into a corner. As the trial reached its conclusion, the judge delivered a scathing assessment of Amanda's actions. Not only was her lawsuit dismissed, but she was also reprimanded for abusing the court system to perpetuate her lies. The ruling was decisive. Amanda's claims were baseless, and the evidence against her was undeniable. For the first time since this ordeal began, I felt a sense of vindication. The aftermath of the trial sent ripples through the family. Those who had blindly supported Amanda were forced to confront the truth of her deceit. Conversations that had once been filled with accusations against me turned to apologies and awkward attempts at reconciliation. While not everyone was quick to admit their mistakes, the shift in dynamics was undeniable. Amanda's grip on the family had been shattered. Publicly humiliated, Amanda withdrew from family gatherings and social circles. Her once pristine reputation lay in tatters, and the friends who had championed her began to distance themselves. It was a dramatic fall from grace, one that left her isolated and exposed. For all her schemes, she had achieved nothing but her own undoing. As for me, the trial marked the end of a long and painful chapter. The family's apologies didn't erase the hurt, but they were a step toward healing. More importantly, I had reclaimed my name and my sense of self. Amanda's betrayal had tested me in ways I never expected, but it had also shown me the value of standing firm in the face of injustice. Walking out of the courthouse that day, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The battle was over, and the truth had prevailed. Amanda might have started this war, but in the end, she was the architect of her own downfall. For the first time in months, I felt free. After the trial, Amanda disappeared from the family's radar, retreating to another city in a desperate attempt to rebuild her life. Word trickled back about her struggles. Her once polished reputation was irreparably damaged. The social circles she had cultivated now shunned her, unwilling to associate with someone so publicly disgraced. Whatever new beginning she sought was overshadowed by the consequences of her own actions. Matthew, on the other hand, wasted no time finalizing the divorce. The end of their marriage seemed almost anticlimactic after everything that had transpired. He cut ties cleanly, taking the opportunity to start over in a new city with a fresh job. His social media updates hinted at a quiet, steady recovery, a stark contrast to the chaos Amanda had left behind. While we weren't close, I felt a sense of respect for how he had handled the situation. His support during the trial had been unexpected but invaluable. For me, the aftermath was complicated. The family's apologies came in waves, some heartfelt, others hesitant. My parents were the first to reach out, their guilt evident in every word. They acknowledged their mistakes, their willingness to believe Amanda over me, and expressed a desire to mend the relationship. Other relatives followed suit, their apologies often couched in excuses about being misled. It was a strange, bittersweet experience. I appreciated their remorse, but the damage had been done. The unquestioning trust one once had in them was gone. Rebuilding those relationships was slow and uneven. Family gatherings became tentative affairs, the air thick with unspoken tension. While some relatives genuinely tried to make amends, others seemed content to pretend nothing had happened. I found myself walking a fine line between accepting their efforts and protecting myself from further hurt. Trust, I realized, was not something I could give freely anymore. Despite the fractured relationships, I felt a growing sense of freedom. The ordeal had taught me that I couldn't rely solely on the family for support or validation. For the first time in years, I started focusing on myself. I threw myself into work, took up new hobbies, and began exploring interests I had long neglected. Slowly, my life took on a new rhythm, one that felt authentic and unburdened by the expectations of others. Amanda's absence from the family dynamic created an unexpected ripple effect. Without her manipulative influence, old wounds began to heal. Relatives who had been at odds for years started finding common ground. It was ironic that Amanda's departure, which she had likely intended as a punishment for us all, ended up fostering a sense of unity. Still, I couldn't shake the lingering bitterness of what her actions had cost me. In the end, I made peace with the fact that things would never return to the way they were. The family's betrayal had left scars, but it had also given me clarity. I no longer felt the need to chase their approval or fit into the roles they had assigned me. Their apologies were a step toward reconciliation, but they weren't enough to erase the past. I accepted them, but I also set boundaries, ensuring that my sense of self wouldn't be compromised again. Starting over wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I moved into a new apartment, one that felt like a true reflection of who I was becoming. I began connecting with friends who had stood by me during the ordeal, rediscovering the value of chosen family. For the first time in a long while, I felt in control of my own story. The lessons from that chapter of my life were hard-earned but invaluable. Amanda had tried to destroy me, but in doing so, she had inadvertently shown me my own strength. The family's betrayal had hurt, but it had also freed me from the weight of their expectations. As I stood on the threshold of this new beginning, I felt a quiet sense of triumph. The scars were still there, but they no longer defined me. I had taken back my life, and for that, I was grateful.